Hey everyone, welcome back to Fireside Conspiracies. I'm Nick, your host, and tonight on QuickFire, we're diving into something that's been heating up fast in 2026. UAP disclosure. With crazy audio recordings, star-shaped ships, and vessels moving through the water in ways that defy physics, we could be here for a week. But what got my attention was actually an interview with a physicist. Now, just so we're clear, when I say race in this episode, it's based on the idea that all of us here on Earth are one race, the human race. So tonight, we're looking into reports that the government may have recovered 4 distinct alien races. Not just one, but 4. And what's really striking is how closely this lines up with themes that science fiction has been exploring for decades. We already know that science fiction is often a precursor to science fact, as Jane Foster said in the movie Thor. So what if some of these sci-fi stories aren't just entertainment, but also preparing us for something very real? Let's start with what insiders are saying right now. Just in the past couple of weeks, respected physicist Dr. Hal Puthoff, who has deep ties to government programs, stated that insiders involved in crash retrievals described at least 4 separate types of non-human biologics. Now, my first instinct was to question what they consider non-human biologics, but his longtime colleague, Dr. Eric Davis, has already named them specifically. Greys, Nordics, reptilians, and insectoids, sometimes called mantids. Now, an important detail to note is these 4 races were not recovered from the same craft. They reportedly came from different crash sites over many years. There's also no public claim that these species are working together in any kind of alliance. In fact, many researchers believe these 4 races have very different, possibly even competing agendas. Since these ideas have been around for decades, let's break down how they've traditionally been viewed in UFO lore. First, the Greys. Small, gray-skinned beings with large black eyes. They're most often described as cold, clinical, and emotionally detached. More like indifferent scientists or lab technicians than friends or invaders. Next, the Nordics. Tall, strikingly human-looking beings. They're widely regarded as warm, benevolent, and highly spiritual. Many see them as watchers or guardians, teachers here to help humanity evolve and ascend. Interestingly, they are frequently portrayed as being in opposition to the reptilians and the Greys. Which takes us to the reptilians. As the name suggests, these beings have distinctly reptilian features. They're typically described as cold, calculating, dominant, and aggressive. The classic predators of the bunch, with a philosophy centered around control and conquest. And finally, the insectoids, or mantids. Tall, praying mantis-like entities. They're viewed as extremely intelligent and emotionally detached, almost bureaucratic in their approach. Like the Greys, they're usually seen as focused on long-term genetic experiments rather than outright domination. So, those are the 4 races that keep coming up in modern claims. And just days ago, the Pentagon dropped another batch of UAP files. Is that coincidence, or part of a slow, deliberate rollout? And I wonder, are we seeing 4 separate visitors to Earth? Or is this the opening act of something much larger? Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Science fiction has been playing with almost this exact scenario for a long time. Roland Emmerich brought us the world of Stargate, a story of lost technology, interstellar travel through wormholes, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. A story that inspired 17 seasons of TV shows. In the first series, Stargate SG-1, there's an ancient alliance known as the 4 Great Races. The Ancients, the Asgard, the Nox, and the Fernlings. These incredibly advanced civilizations work together across the galaxy for thousands of years. Then there's humanity, or the Tau'ri. Over the course of the series, we're eventually recognized as the 5th race. There's even an episode literally titled The 5th Race where humanity begins stepping into its place among the stars. It's a powerful story about four established races and humans rising to join them as equals. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Our heroes run into several powerful alien species that want to wipe us out. As a contrast, we can look at Star Trek Enterprise, the prequel series from the early 2000s, a show that explored how we would handle our first steps into space. Seems a bit more relevant as we advance AI-controlled robotics and pursue human colonies on the Moon, Mars, and beyond. In that show, we meet the Xindi, multiple intelligent species that all evolved on the same planet. Reptilians, insectoids, primates, aquatics, and arboreals. They're fractured, deeply suspicious of one another, and terrified of humanity's rising power. There's even an outside force called the Guardians, secretly pulling strings from the shadows. The Xindi attack Earth because they were warned by the Guardians that Earth would destroy them in the future. We go looking for vengeance and discover that the Xindi have been mostly puppets. Enterprise shows us how messy and dangerous interacting with multiple unknown races could be. And if we zoom out from that one isolated encounter to the full Star Trek universe, we see the United Federation of Planets, a vast interstellar alliance made up of hundreds of different species. Humans don't just join this federation, we help found it and eventually become one of its leading voices. In Star Trek's hopeful vision, humanity survives its own self-destructive phase, steps onto the galactic stage, and becomes a force for exploration, cooperation, and idealism. That's a scenario that's been pumped into our minds since 1966. And if we're going to talk about sci-fi preparing us, we can't skip Stephen Spielburg. For nearly 50 years, he's been shaping how the world thinks about alien contact. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, released in 1977, showed us a government making first official contact, human abduction, and ordinary people being drawn into something awe-inspiring. But the event took place in an isolated area, at a time when no one could whip out their cell phone and broadcast it to the world. So the whole encounter remained cloaked in secrecy. E.T., the extraterrestrial, gave us the emotional, personal side. A lonely, lost alien, a child, and humanity's struggle between fear and compassion. In it, our government officials are obviously aware of alien life and that it's been visiting our planet. They're frantically searching for E.T. and anyone who has come into contact with him. And their goal seems to be containing the incident so the greater public doesn't find out. And now, in 2026, coinciding with fresh UAP file releases, Spielberg is dropping Disclosure Day, a movie exploring the question, how does humanity react to the revelation of extraterrestrial life? When we look at his body of work, Close Encounters, E.T., and now Disclosure Day, it feels like he's been slow-walking the public through the emotional stages of contact. Wonder, friendship, and finally, in an era of phone cameras and social media, full revelation. But what if these weren't just blockbuster movies? What if they've been soft disclosure? Carefully preparing humanity to accept that we're not alone and that aliens have been involved with Earth for a very long time. Okay, let's bring it back to our reality here in 2026. We have credible insiders talking about 4 separate alien races. Science fiction painting pictures of alliance, conflicts, and human ascension. And one of the greatest filmmakers of our time releasing what could be the ultimate disclosure story right as the government is dropping files in real time. That's one hell of a pattern. So what if these stories aren't pure fiction? What if they're cultural preparation, or even subtle leaks, for the day when humanity's long isolation finally ends? Are the 4 races operating independently? Are some friendly? Some indifferent? Some hostile? And most importantly, where does that leave us? Are we being invited to become the 5th race? Or are we still very much the new kid on the block who doesn't fully understand the game? This conversation always leaves me wondering just how big the real story actually is. If even a portion of this is true, we may be living through one of the most profound transitions in human history. The end of our species' quarantine and the beginning of something much bigger. And yet, I can't get past that nagging feeling of manipulation and subterfuge. While I long to cast aside my cynicism, it has been well earned. And though I believe that aliens are often used as distraction, I'm always much more wary of them being used as the key to global governance. That one final ingredient that convinces humanity we must unite under one banner. One world, one authority, in the name of interstellar cooperation or survival. Still, as someone who fully believes in extraterrestrial intelligent life, I have to consider that some truth could be slipping through. Whether they come from light years away, which I doubt, or operate interdimensionally, which seems more likely to me, the idea of finally getting answers makes me feel like a kid again. It fights that cynicism back and reminds me to look at the unknown with wonder and excitement. And since we are a savvy community that questions the narrative so much, maybe it's okay to drop our guard just a bit and enjoy this part of the ride. Because make no mistake, thanks to camera phones, social media, whistleblowers, and citizen journalists, we are living through an unprecedented era of disclosure. And it's very likely that one night in the not-too-distant future, we'll go to bed in a world full of questions about aliens and wake up in a world that finally has answers. As always, I want to thank you all for sitting down by the fire for a while. I'd love to know what you think is really going on. Which sci-fi universe or Spielberg film do you think comes closest to what might actually be happening? Drop your thoughts down in the comments, and as much as I don't like this part, liking and subscribing really does help the channel. And remember, most importantly, do your own research and never sell yourself short. Take care out there, and God bless.